In this lesson, we're going to take a look at keynotes and a couple things. There's a keynote file you have to be aware of, and then there's different methods of keynoting. So if I go to the Annotation tab, I will find keynotes. And then from the drop-down, you can find element keynotes, material keynotes, or a user keynote. So if we take a look at element keynotes, for example, I could select an element in my drawing, and if I go to the properties of that element, and then I actually go to the type properties, I'll find that there is a location for a keynote. And if I select the blank, it'll give me a browse button. That browse button is going to go out to your keynote file depending where that's specified, and I'll show you where you specify your keynotes. This is a very simplistic one that we started with KHOV and are going to add to it. So this section is floor plans interior, there's plumbing fixtures, and you can scroll down and see everything located there. We have a section for appliances. Okay, so let's say I go with this keynote here, which is the refrigerator space, and I select OK. Now this element has an associated keynote. So if I come back to my Annotate tab and say that I want to place an element keynote, when I select that refrigerator, it is now going to place that keynote. Now if I wanted the description and not the number, I can select on the keynote itself, and that has properties. And if I go to edit type, there's keynote number. I just edited the keynote text one by accident, but if I'm on keynote text, I say show me the text, not the number, and you can also have it boxed. I can select OK, and now I get the full description and not the number. So you can have different keynote type tags. If I go back to Annotate, go to the drop down under Keynote, there's also a Material Keynote. So if I go to my Manage tab and go to Materials, this will get you into your materials that are loaded in the project. And if I select a material, let's say cabinets, under the Identity tab, there is a section where you can place a keynote down at the bottom. And you have that browse button. When I select that browse button, it's going to get me back out to that keynote file. And that's how you would tag something based on the material being used. And that's pretty common when you create details in the materials in section and you're tagging brick and CMU or concrete. Pretty common to use that method. If I do a user keynote, well, then I can go ahead and, pick on anything, and then it's going to bring me right to my keynote file where then I can browse and pick a keynote. It's not going to put it in the element. It's not going to put it in the material. It's just a user keynote that you want to keynote some piece of annotation, and it's going to allow you to do it that way. So I'll go ahead and delete that. So now in the annotation under tag, when I go to the drop down, here's where I can specify my keynote settings. When I select keynote settings and pick browse, that's going to bring me out to the directory where I can point or browse to where my keynote file is. And it's really just a text file to specify that information. If I want to go ahead and just quickly check what directory that's in, I'm just going to go down to my Windows Explorer, and I'm just going to bring up that text file for a second. So now I have that Keynote file open and we can see what it looks like. So here's my main sections. So 01 underscore foundation, and it has the main number there. At the end, notice it says 00 LBB. That's my top heading. So at the end of the line, you have your subheading. So spread footing is under foundations. So that's why this line item has the 01 foundation, because it's a subheading underneath my foundation section. And then I have all my different categories, like 1.3 is concrete footings, and then 1.301 is actually a keynote. So this is a keynote. This is a heading, because the heading has the 01 foundation, which is under the main title of 01 Foundation. So you always have a heading, you have your categories, and then you have your keynotes. Okay, so the 1.201 goes to 1.2, which is the category of thickened edge. Just wanted to show that a little bit just so you can see how it's organized. And if you spend time reading it, it's pretty self-explanatory. Tried to break each section down into 100 different keynotes. Some are broken down to 50 to fit in some additional categories, just to keep things organized and easy to browse. So once your keynotes are established and their tags, usually you have a keynote legend on the drawing sheet. So if I take a second here and go to one of my drawing sheets, I'll go to a floor plan, and this one doesn't happen to have a keynote schedule on it. To place a keynote schedule, you would go to the View tab in the drop down under Schedules, or Legends, I apologize. You would pick Keynote Legend. Give the legend a name, pick OK, and by default, we got over here the value and the text, and you can control what's filtered and what it looks like. Pick OK, and then it'll give me that keynote legend, which I can go ahead and drop on that drawing sheet. It's automatically going to populate any keynotes that are in that view. That particular floor plan view didn't have, looks like it had one keynote and there wasn't even a description in the keynote file. So typically you may not find keynotes on floor plans, but you'll definitely find them on your building sections and your details.